I can explain.
Perhaps you're wondering, was it a breakup? Of course not, but who could say no to Belgian chocolate? Ah, Belgium, home of the French fries, waffles, and the best chocolate in the world. Was de Hölle? To many people around the world, Belgium is just considered the Netherlands' discount brother, famous for liking pissing boys and giant steel balls. But do you also know that it's the birthplace of Charlemagne, the father of modern Europe, or that it was the home of the Northern Renaissance? Well, probably not. So let's not waste any more time and join me on a journey to discover more of Belgium's colorful past. Hope you like that new intro, and welcome back everyone to History City. My name is Tim and I will be your host today. So some of you might already know that Belgium is kind of a confusing country, with a northern half that speaks Dutch and a south that speaks French. I mean, how does a country like that even work? To understand that, we must travel back to the time of the ancient Romans. When the Romans first arrived in modern-day Belgium, it was inhabited by people called the Belgae, which gave today's Belgium its name. The Belgae were originally a mix of Celts and Germanic tribes, but under the Romans' gentle persuasion, they quickly assimilated into Roman culture. Roman Belgium was renamed Gallia Belgica, and the locals soon adopted Latin as the main form of communication. But wait, what's that? The light! It's getting stronger! It's Jesus! Christianity arrived in Belgium during the 4th century, before it was even adopted as the main state religion in Rome. And the church was firmly rooted in Belgium by the 7th century. But times were changing. The Roman Empire split into two halves in 395 AD, and Belgium lay on its western side. As the Western Romans were repeatedly battered by the Huns and other Germanic tribes, the Western Roman Empire sang its swan song in 476 AD. As Europe entered into the Middle Ages, Belgium returned to Germanic hands, under a people known as the Franks. No, not you! I meant these Franks. The Franks were able to consolidate power over the lowlands, France, Germany, Switzerland, Austria, Italy, and the Czech Republic. Whew, these guys were rolling. Now, this is the part where Belgium's linguistic divide really happens. But more importantly, it coincided with the reign of Charlemagne, the big daddy of modern Europe. Charlemagne, born in the Belgian city of Liège, became king of the Franks in 768, and he ruled an empire that spoke multiple languages, from the Germanic family to the Romance family and also the Slavic family. And Belgium lay right on the border of the Germanic Romance language divide. And these regions got new names too, Flanders and Wallonia. The Germanic and Romance languages spoken in Belgium evolved into Dutch and French during the Middle Ages, and after a lot of mess and wars regarding family matters, the Frankish Empire fell apart, and Flanders and Wallonia both went under French rule. But Flanders was never securely under the control of either the French nor their German neighbors, given that cities like Ypres, Bruges, and Ghent were making cash money because of their lucrative textile and cloth industry. The Flemish were making so much money that the French king, Philip IV, was wondering why he wasn't involved. Pourquoi? The French then mounted an invasion against the Flemish with their heavy cavalry, having absolute confidence that their knights would easily crush the Flemish infantry.
Monsieur, are you certain that we will defeat this filthy Flemish swine?
Oui, Jean-Pierre. With both God and King on our side, who can defeat a mighty French knights? No one can. No one. But to everyone's surprise, the French were crushed by the Flemish in the Battle of the Golden Spurs in 1302, proving that Flanders was not to be messed with. Now let's move away from battles and wars for a second, give a little credit to Belgium's contribution to the artistic world. By the 15th century, both Flanders and Wallonia became centers of the Northern Renaissance, producing artistic masters such as Jan van Eyck, Peter Bruegel, and Hieronymus Bosch. Yep, the guy who made all those weird-ass trippy paintings. The masterpieces created during this time directly influenced a long line of world-renowned Belgian artists. Of course, we can't forget about René Magritte. Medieval Belgium was also a center of the Franco-Flemish school of music, a style of polyphonic singing that is mainly used in sacred music and hymns. And unknown to many, diamonds are somewhat of a specialty of Belgium, with 84% of the entire world's rough diamonds traded through Antwerp, making it the international diamond center. This isn't just recent phenomenon either. The Flemish city of Antwerp has been the center of the diamond trade as early as the 1400s, with Lodewijk van Berken, a local diamond cutter, inventing the scaife, a polishing wheel which utilized olive oil and diamond dust that turned this into this. So next time you visit Belgium, don't forget to check out Antwerp's diamond district, ladies. On a side note, don't forget to click like and subscribe down there and vote for the next country you'd like to see right here. Belgium, needless to say, was doing just fine during the Renaissance, but a storm is about to rock the smooth-sailing boat, as somewhere deep in modern-day Germany, a monk became unhappy with the Catholic Church. Belgium and the rest of the lowlands had been faithfully Catholic since at least the 7th century, until the Protestant Reformation, spearheaded by Martin Luther, completely turned the tables, with the Netherlands, Belgium, and the rest of the lowlands becoming increasingly Protestant, especially among the educated middle class. To make things short, 15th century Belgium came under the rule of the Burgundians, a duchy within the Kingdom of France. And all you need to know about medieval European laws about inheritance is that they're confusing as fuck. So simply put, the Burgundian Duke died with no heirs in 1477, and parts of the duchy remained with France while Belgium became part of the Austrian Habsburgs' lands. Then, after lots of lovemaking and incest, the Austrians got one of their own onto the throne of Spain. And by the early 1500s, Belgium became part of the Spanish Empire. I know your head's probably about to explode with all this info, but bear with me, I promise it gets easier. So, back to the Spaniards. Why did I mention Protestantism? That's because the most important thing you need to know about the Spanish in the 1500s is that they are really Catholic. Super Catholic. The fact that Belgium had a significant Protestant population did not sit well with the King of Spain, and combined with financial mismanagement within the Spanish Empire, the Protestant Netherlands broke free from Spanish rule in the 80 Years' War. But while the Dutch Republic emerged a free and Protestant nation, Belgium remained within Spain's grasp. The Spanish invasion of Belgium during the war pushed the Protestant elites and merchants to England, Germany, and the Netherlands, resulting in a severe brain drain in Belgium. Times were tough for the Belgians as their wealth slowly declined due to European powers becoming more and more invested and interested in the fledgling market of the New World, while cities like Bruges and Ghent lost their prominence to London and Amsterdam. Speaking of the New World, New York City was actually founded by a Belgian guy called Pierre Minuit, who was a Protestant Walloon who purchased the island of Manhattan from the natives in 1626. And without him, we wouldn't have the New York that we know and love today. Belgium also had a chance to completely transform itself once again into an economic power when it became part of Austria once again after the War of Spanish Succession. Austria, being a landlocked nation, was unable to compete with the naval powers of Europe in the colonization game. But after receiving Belgium in the Treaty of Utrecht, Austria created the Ostend Company, an attempt to compete with the Dutch and English for access in the rich tea trade in India and China. For a brief period in the 1700s, Belgium's cities became prominent once again due to all the tea imports from Austria's factories in India, at one point importing 7 million pounds of Chinese tea, which is like half of Western Europe's supply. But unwilling to be outshone by their Austrian counterpart, the Dutch and English pressured the Austrians to end their attempt to break into the Asian market, thus concluding Belgium's colonial ambitions. For now. By 1795, everyone's favorite general, Napoleon, annexed Belgium from the Austrians, and continued his mad dash across Europe during the early years of the 19th century. Napoleon's empire brought the ideas of the French Revolution to Belgium, and played a part in imposing a stronger sense of nationalism among the Flemish and Walloons. And it was under the French when Wallonia, the French-speaking part of Belgium, followed the British example and fully industrialized, resulting in Belgium becoming the first continental European country to embrace the Industrial Revolution. Napoleon's fatal mistake of invading Russia during the winter led to his downfall in 1812. Why won't you ever learn? And after escaping from his exile from the Italian island of Elba, his final attempt to jumpstart his dead empire was foiled in the battlefield of Waterloo, which took place just a few kilometers away from the modern Belgian capital of Brussels. The leading European powers then met up in Vienna to discuss the complete restructuring of the continent to prevent the rise of another Napoleon, and Belgium in 1815 was unified with the Netherlands, but the marriage was not a happy one.
Okay Leute, we must not waste any more time figuring out what we should do with Flanders and Wallonia. perhaps it should go to the Netherlands?
Oui, I agree. Duh. Bro, you're here to Sverige?
See, by George, that's a brilliant idea.
What? Wait, hold on a minute. You want us to be part of the Netherlands? Are you out of your frickin' mind? He's Protestant and I'm Catholic, and like half of my country speaks French. Why the hell am I going to be under the Dutch?
We are sure everything will work out just fine.
It turned out to be not fine, as the Belgian population doubled that of the Dutch, yet both had the same amount of representatives. The Catholic institutions were forced to secularize under the Protestant king, and the North largely exploited the industrial capabilities of Wallonia. The government's treatment of the conservative Catholics as well as the ruling middle class angered much of the Belgian population, and an unlikely alliance was formed between the conservatives and the progressives, as they fought for an independent Belgium. In 1830, Belgium, with major help from Britain, succeeded in its goal of gaining independence. Right off the bat, they had two major problems to solve: the language problem and finances. With the nobility and the upper classes adopting French as their main language, the Dutch speakers of Flanders were treated as second-class citizens, and Dutch wasn't even accepted as an official language in the country until the 1890s. And part of the reason why French was held in a high regard was because of the economic disparity between the Walloons and the Flemish. Wallonia had industrialized as early as the late 1700s, while Flanders was still largely agricultural. As for finances, Belgium's separation from the Netherlands resulted in a drastic loss of income, as it was no longer able to access the Dutch market and its overseas colonies. However, Belgium wasn't just going to bow down to its European neighbors. They were going to join back into the colonization game. But Belgium was about to enter into the darkest part of its history, and that moment arrived when Belgian King Leopold II decided to colonize the Congo. In 1885, King Leopold II convinced the world that the colonization of the Congo was for humanitarian purposes and philanthropy, and occupied this African territory that was 77 times bigger than Belgium itself. But the colonization of the Congo wasn't exactly undertaken by the Belgian state. Instead, the Congo became the personal property of King Leopold himself, which meant that there was no interference or problems coming from the Belgian parliament. The Congo soon became hell on earth for the natives when Leopold formed the Force Publique, his personal army to enforce rubber quotas from the Congolese laborers. Multiple atrocities were committed during this time, and the Force Publique was infamous for severing the limbs of natives who were unable to meet rubber quotas, and oftentimes the children weren't spared. Modern estimates show that up to 10 to 15 million Congolese natives died under Leopold's reign, and it wasn't until Christian missionaries witnessed these atrocities that Leopold's true intentions were revealed. While the Congo remained under Belgian rule until 1960, Leopold went on to be revered by parts of the Belgian population. And it wasn't until this year, with Belgium experiencing the effects of the George Floyd protests, that many of Leopold's statues were torn down across the country. As Belgium entered into the 20th century, its colonial empire had its reaches not only in Africa, but also China as well, with the Belgians owning a small concession in the city of Tianjin from 1902 to 1931. But Belgium wasn't only an empire built on warfare and diplomacy. It was an empire built on chocolate. The rivalry between Switzerland and Belgium for having the best chocolate in the world has been an ongoing military conflict since the 1800s. But the ironic thing is, the Belgian chocolate that we love today was brought to the country by a Swiss man named John Neuhaus. Although hot cocoa had been enjoyed in Belgium since as early as the 1600s during Spanish rule, it was only enjoyed by upper classes as a delicacy instead of a sweet craved by the masses. Neuhaus sold dark chocolate and joined a sweet shop in Brussels in 1857, and its success placed Belgium on every chocolate lover's map. The Belgians took chocolate so seriously that there was a law implemented in 1884 stipulating that a minimum of 35% cocoa must be used in the country's chocolate to prevent the use of low-quality fats or other artificials from ruining the taste. The late 19th century was a time of relative peace across Europe, and Belgium was able to enjoy much of that tranquility of this period. But as the powder keg of World War I exploded in 1914, Belgium was unlucky enough to be caught in between the giants of France and Germany. And that language problem that we talked about earlier, well, it was about to bite Belgium's ass hard. As mentioned earlier, the French speakers of Belgium not only made up the upper classes, but also the higher military ranks as well. The Flemish, only serving as foot soldiers in World War I, often had to work with their Walloon commanders who only spoke French, and awkward situations like this happened quite often. March forward, my men! What the hell is he saying? The hell would I know? Do I look like I speak French? Well, I can't either. Men, I said move forward. We don't speak French. I said move forward. Belgium was quickly overrun by the Germans during the war, and the Walloon officers' poor treatment towards the Dutch-speaking Flemish fueled the Flemish desire for more autonomy within the country. But the internal division wasn't the only concern of Belgium during the war, as many towns and most famously the Flemish city of Ypres were destroyed by artillery fire. Relations between the two groups continued to deteriorate throughout the 20th century, with political groups having separate branches based on language instead of ideology. So you got Flemish Christian Democrats and Walloon Christian Democrats, Flemish Liberals and Walloon Liberals, and even Flemish Socialists and Walloon Socialists. Belgium suffered another severe hit when it was invaded by the Germans again in World War II, with 25,000 Belgian Jews murdered during the Holocaust. Belgium after World War II recovered much quicker than many of its neighbors, and the economic crisis caused by the war gave many European politicians the idea that maybe if we work more together and create a monetary union, we can prevent further wars and pull ourselves out of all this debt. I'm gonna have to think about that one. The Belgian politician Paul-Henri Sprague became one of the pioneers of this mega project and formed the European Coal and Steel Community, which eventually became the European Union. But the end of the war resulted in a drastic demographic change as well. Wallonia deteriorated economically due to the decline of its steel industry, while Flanders experienced an economic boom with its focus on trade and services, as well as the Flemish population quickly outgrowing that of Wallonia. The newfound wealth of Flanders prompted the creation of nationalist political parties, and the risk of Belgium falling apart became very real. In the 1960s, the Belgian government decided to solve its linguistic issue once and for all, resulting in the creation of language communities in the country, a Dutch one, a French one, and even a tiny German one, right there. By the 80s, Belgium became even more decentralized, with these linguistic communities gaining their own governments, with Brussels remaining a bilingual city. But that deal wasn't enough to appease all sides, as separatist movements continued to remain popular across the country. Belgium even had a government shutdown back in 2010 that lasted 589 days. Beat that, America! However, Belgium, as much as it's facing a very real danger of splitting apart, is no quitter, with Brussels being the de facto capital of the EU and the country that created Tintin and the Smurfs. You never fail to surprise. While patriotism isn't exactly big in Belgium, you can bet nothing will unite the Belgians faster than playing against the Dutch in the World Cup. So next time you consider getting high in Amsterdam, why not consider a quick detour to Belgium, the little brother of the lowlands? Once again, don't forget to click like and subscribe and help this history-loving Asian man pursue his dreams.